Bridge Therapeutics is a company dedicated to addressing the opioid crisis. We're looking to separate the treatment of pain from the risk of addiction. This should save thousands of lives and disrupt some really big markets where there's been little innovation in the last 20 years. The problem we address is that our strongest pain relievers are addictive and can cause fatal overdose. 63,000 Americans and another 3,000 Canadians lost their lives last year to opioid overdose. By and large, they weren't looking to get high. They were seeking pain relief, but got addicted, and then things spun out of control. So how do we fix that? We're going to use a drug called buprenorphine, or simply Bup. Bup has already been proven to be safe and effective in treating both pain and addiction. This greatly reduces the time, cost, and risk of FDA approval. Yet because it's generic, we need to build barriers to entry around our products. So the ingredients are generic, the products are not. We do this several different ways. We start with a delivery technology called Zydis, which gets around the chief drawback of this drug. We then can add marketing exclusivity by doing unique trials for the FDA. Our later products are patented, and we have new improved versions to keep customers loyal to our therapies. So looking at our products, our pain drugs are safe and strong, safe and effective. They're strong. There's tiny risk of addiction and overdose, similar to codeine. Our Bucam is even stronger since it treats two types of pain, from injury and from inflammation. Our addiction drug is easy to take. It dissolves in 3 seconds versus the competing drugs, the branded drug, which takes anywhere from 6 to 16 minutes, so just 3 seconds. They're also inexpensive to manufacture. It's about 1/5 the cost of the branded drug. In terms of our milestones, our commercialization progress, 2 years ago, we licensed the delivery technology. Last year, we opened our IND. We are doing the only trial needed for FDA approval this summer. So within about a year, we should be in sales and have a liquidity event along the way. The markets are big that we're attacking, about $36 billion. We're dealing with the worst pain. It's called moderate to severe, where currently only opioids are used. It's about $10 billion for acute patients, another $20 billion in chronic patients. In the addiction market, we're competing directly with other versions of buprenorphine. It's about a $6 billion, 6 million patient market. In terms of our go-to-market strategy, we're evaluating both licensing and self-directed. So with licensing, obviously we would get an upfront fee and share revenue, allowing us to concentrate on developing our pipeline. And we're already in discussions with several companies about doing that. If we do that ourselves, self-directed, we would be wholesalers to prescribers, clinics, and insurers. We would outsource distribution in the back office. We'd use a combination of dedicated sales force in urban areas and shared sales force in more dispersed rural areas. And we would look to exploit market concentrations. That's particularly true of our first drug for addiction, where the problem tracks the Appalachian Mountains, the Rust Belt, from Maine down into Georgia and into Florida. Looking at our financial projections, these are robust. We're looking at roughly $20 million in sales next year, growing to $500 million in 2025. Now, this is a modest share, about 2%, of the market. A more realistic potential is anywhere from $4 to $14 billion, and we can get there through safer scheduling. Buprenorphine is a Schedule III drug, like codeine, whereas things like fentanyl, oxycodone, morphine are all Schedule II. So buprenorphine is Schedule III, morphine, etc., are Schedule II. We can get government guidance. That's where CDC, FDA, DEA encourages prescribers to use the safest available, best available product. That means our therapies can become the standard of care in pain management. That's how we get to the big numbers. So what does that mean as a company? Let me give you some examples, a couple of case studies. First is a company called Heron Therapeutics. Heron is also working with generics and branding them. They have a market cap of about $1.5 billion. A better analog is a company called Biohaven, because Biohaven is using the exact same delivery technology that we are, the Zydus delivery technology, they're worth about $5 billion. So looking at our management team, let me point out a couple highlights. In particular, Dr. Sullivan, our Chief Science Officer and our Chairman and Founder, is a leading clinical researcher. He's done 170 clinical trials for FDA approval. He's also a top prescriber in this space. He's been treating pain and addiction for over 30 years. I myself have been working with startups for about 20 years and raised them over $200 million. Among our advisors, Dr. Bob Rappaport ran the FDA's division for pain and addiction drugs, and Joe Pergolesi has helped commercialize $15 billion in pharmaceutical assets. We're now working on a $5 million preferred equity round. This is at a $45 million pre-money valuation. We've already raised $7.5 million, $5 before this round, $2.5 in this round. We'll then look to raise another $35 million at higher levels for marketing and product development. Our exits are either to go public through a listing like on NASDAQ or through merging into a SPAC, or as I mentioned, licensing with an established company. Indivior has the branded drug, the one that takes 6 minutes to dissolve. Pfizer is active in the pain space, and there's several other who we're talking to. There's a pie chart about the use of funds in this round. So those are my prepared remarks. I invite your questions.
Tim, thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
Okay, any questions? Luke, please go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I realized I was also on mute. Do me a favor, Tim. Can you walk us through that the FDA requirements? You mentioned that it's a fairly straightforward one. It seems like you're displacing some major players in the pain relief space. So
sure. For the first drug, we are just coming up with a better delivery of an existing therapy.
Okay.
So for the first drug, it's just a delivery pay. That's why it's easy to get approved. We don't need to show safety or effectiveness. So we, in 2019, we did a pre-IND or a dress rehearsal, asked FDA, what do you require? They agreed we only need to do a delivery study. The other drugs, I'm gonna show you the other drugs here. We need to do a bit more work. For Bup HD, it's actually the same tablet. So no new formulation, but we're getting a new indication. There is no strong version of buprenorphine today available for pain. There are very, very weak versions, but no strong one. So because we're going to be doing a full strength version, 8 milligrams of buprenorphine, we should get exclusivity for that work. The Bup LD low dose, there are low weak versions of the drug available. We can't get exclusivity because we'll be about the same level. We've been getting pain doctors in as investors now. They want us to have a low dose version, so we're putting that in. Both HD and LD will require effectiveness studies. These are 3-month trials. For Bucam, this is a combination drug. It's buprenorphine and meloxicam, an anti-inflammatory. This is a more complicated study. It is called the contribution of components, where we show both legs are stronger than placebo. We also will need to show a safety just for meloxicam because it's not really given on a chronic basis. So that will take about 6 months to do it, and that's the most. So the phasing here is also have to do with what's the least cost. The trials review now is about $750,000. Bup HD is about $5 million, but it's easier to get than the low dose drug. That's about $3 million. There's some reasons for that. Bucam's about $10 million. Our better versions for all of the first drug, as I said, they're the same formula. They're much safer. For Bucam, it improves on compliance. Makes it harder for people to shop their prescription and get more drug, or to sell it and take less drug than they're prescribed.
Okay, perfect. Luke, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So, in short, you have 2 lead products in your drug portfolio. Do you have a Gantt chart or anything ready that shows how far you are in clinical trials for those two? Sorry if I missed this one.
Yes, we have them, but I don't have it in this presentation. The work that we've done to commercialize Bunels is most of the work that we need to do for the first pain drug because they are the same tablet. The only extra work that we need to do for formulation is to come up with more strengths. With addiction, because it's taken once a day and it's used just to block the reward center of the brain, you can use a single dose for most usage. For pain, you need to be able to increase and decrease the dosing, like titrate up and titrate down. So we need to do some formulation for that. But we can do that while we are conducting the pain study. The only thing which is stopping the pain study, the first pain study, is just funds. So with funding, we will launch into that as soon as possible.
Okay, and for Bunels, how far are you on your clinical trials? What stage specifically?
We have not started. For Bunels, we've actually done a pilot PK study. We've run 7 patients through a pilot to show that we get bioequivalence. That's the blue line here. If you see, the blue line is within the bands of the green. Hikma is a generic tablet because ours is a tablet. That's what we're comparing it to. So we've shown bioequivalence in a small study. The definitive study, we will likely pay somebody else to perform, and that's what we're raising money for right now. But to say we're seeing the results already in the pilot. The definitive study shouldn't be any different.
And what's the minimum check size that you're allowing for participation?
I mean, for angels, we're looking down as low as $25,000. Normally, though, like high net worth, looking for about 100, and institutions preferably $250,000.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any other questions? Galen, go ahead.
Yeah, just Tim, what's your biggest risks that you see on getting yourself to revenue here? Because this seems, from your numbers you're showing, it looks like a slam dunk, but none of these ever are. So what are the biggest risks that you're going to have to overcome?
It's the FDA is backed up. Let me give you some numbers. Statutory approval is 10 months. That's what the FDA targets to look at a review. For 2 reasons: because buprenorphine has already had precedence, and because we're treating a top priority of FDA, namely the opioid crisis, we should get rapid review. Rapid review is like 3 to 4 months, but we have been told the FDA is backed up. So the chief risk is delay. I think we can get on formularies. I think given our scientific advisors and given that we're working with a specialist firm who's worked with Pfizer, they work with Novartis, they work with Purdue back in the day. They can get us on the formularies. But as I say, the biggest risk at this point is delay at FDA because of COVID. They're backed up.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Jim, you want to grab the last question?
Yeah, I saw like a little, very small PK study, but I'm not clear on what, I guess I missed the data from animals.
Right. The buprenorphine, it's as a drug, is about 50 years old. It was developed in 1968. There are hundreds of safety effectiveness studies on buprenorphine. They started with animal studies. Those have already been done. That's what it means to be generic. So we can rely on existing studies to show safety and effectiveness, as well as the animal studies. We don't need to do that. That's what the FDA allows under their 505(b)(2) process. They're only requiring us to do a PK study. The study that we've already done is on 7 patients. The definitive trial, just to make it more representative and reduce any statistical risk, is 36 patients. It's a short trial. It takes about a week.
But I'm just, so why, why are you doing this and no one else has figured this out?
Okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Sullivan. Now, I told you about a little bit of his background. Dr. Sullivan did the original trial in America of buprenorphine, and he's done virtually every single trial ever since. He's done 16 trials of buprenorphine drugs. He, in past, have asked drug companies to come up with a strong version of buprenorphine to treat pain. They have resisted because they want to go after the bigger acute market. The second thing is that because he is a prescriber, he is an active physician, he is aware of patients complaining about just how horrible the existing drugs are. The most frequent thing that he runs across are people saying, I have to suck on this thing for a long time. For addiction, it's once a day. For pain, it's 3 or 4 times a day. So, people who are taking the generic tablet are sucking on this thing for anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour a day. This would take it down just to a few seconds, right? But he being a prescriber as well as a researcher, is vitally aware of that feedback. And that's why you put this stuff together.
Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Gemma. Honestly, I was also curious, if this has been around for so long, why hasn't it already been developed into a more well-known solution? But I think that what you've just said is kind of the key point. It's been around, but in a format that is less effective, takes too long, and now you're creating that fast dissolve option, which will revolutionize kind of the delivery and therefore the market and kind of the traction that you can get with this solution. Is that kind of the core of it?
That's completely correct. It is used. It's buprenorphine as an injection is used in virtually every single emergency room in America for 3 very painful things. It's used for emergency cesareans, it's used for 3rd-degree burns, and it's used for kidney stones. But that's injection. You don't want to be taking injections every single day on a chronic basis.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's why it's given through the lining of the mouth. If you swallow it, it's ineffective. You can't. It's like nitroglycerin tablets. If you swallow it, it doesn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So it by going through the lining of the mouth, it avoids the liver.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. And so we're just making it easy to take through the mouth, through the lining of the mouth, the buccal mucosa.
Got it.
Avoiding the liver is the key to it. Okay, well, thank you very much for that, Tim. Great job.